So here we are. It is summer. It is my holiday time, and I have some time to read. And just in that moment, what happens? I got a notification that there's a new PDF version for the second edition of Star Trek. And on the same day, I got a PDF notification about a Dreams and Machines source book as well, which I'll have a look at another time. No, I have not had, because this is just out. I've not had a lot of time to look through this, but this is just going to be flicking through, having a look what's in the book, what might have changed. I might just touch on a couple of things that I saw in the quick start and that I discussed already with a couple of people. And I'm curious about how they actually ended up now. And I already had a quick sneak, but really only about 10 minutes, no more than that. So if you want to find out more about particular details or have views on it or comments, then please make sure you leave me a comment here on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, you have to hop across on YouTube later and leave a comment there. Or if you're live during the chat and you've got comments or questions or say, oh, well, how did they do this or that or the other, let's find out together. Just put something in the chat. I'm sure we can work it out. So, without much further ado, let's have a look through this. Now, the cover is pretty much the same as far as I can tell. Don't think it has changed much. We have a nice map in here, and they actually have changed it a little bit. From what I understand, I recently was watching Eric Campbell's chat, and he was looking at the border lines over here, how the border works over here with the Shackleton Expanse. I have not picked up on it, but basically this seems to be like an interesting way now. It really feels like the Shackleton Expanse is out there, and it's sort of threatened by the Romulan Empire on the one side and the Klingon on the other. There's just a narrow little bit of getting there, so you can see all the different bases here. And I have, to be honest, no idea what the Rongovian Protectorate is. Hello, Mohammed. Maybe you know what the Rongovian Protectorate is. I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But yeah, so the question is, they have simplified this, and basically they one of the key things they did is they got rid of the combat dice or challenge dice or whatever you want to call them, the D6s. So it's a pure D20 system now, a bit like Dreams and Machines. And I understand their next one, which is Space 1999, is also going that way mechanically. So let's have a flick through it. Color schemes are now white paper with different colored print on it, mainly black, but you can see some colored headings. Makes it a bit clearer to read on paper, definitely. Yeah, looking at the old one, with my old eyes these days, it's just up there. I find it quite hard sometimes to have black backgrounds, but it's actually probably cheaper as well. However, on screen, it does blind you a little bit, doesn't it? So, nice little introduction. We have some classic artwork in here. This original series, of course. We've got a little bit about the expanding canon, and I think part of the second edition is really to bring in the other series that have happened since Picard, Discovery. I haven't seen much of Prodigy in this one. And Lower Decks, definitely some Lower Decks in here. And I actually recently got myself the Shackleton Expanse and Star Trek Lower Decks as well, so my books are just up there, still shrink wrapped. I haven't read them yet. So, what I actually really liked at the time was when I looked at the streams from Geeks and Sundry, that they used Star Trek as a stage, if you like, for a lot of character play. And that's what I'm trying to do when I run it, and I'm actually going to play it again this Friday. I've got myself a different uniform for that, so that should be fun. But that's in German. It's on the German channel with Klagua. So depth of character is definitely something they're going for. So what you need to play, that's all the same stuff. So how's it structured? Let's have a look. The table of contents is less interesting to look at than this, I think. So initially you get a Star Trek primer for those who are casual fans and might not know all the detail, like me. Then you get something about Starfleet, you get something about the Final Frontier. Then you actually get into the meat of it, basically. Part 2 has got the rules in it. So we've got the... what's this here? I can wait. The core rules of it and how to create stories and so on. Then you've got equipment, combat gear, operations, momentum, how to spend it, the new challenges, the new extended tasks. They're all in there. And then they've got 3 types of conflict. So social conflict, personal combat, and starship combat. All roughly working the same as each other, but different to what they used to be. So then running the game, this is for the GM. So you've got game mastering. There's a little bit more about that, how to use threat. And that was actually an interesting thing for me, especially because they actually again go into tasks and challenges. A very short introductory adventure, and allies and adversaries towards the back. So there you go. Star Trek Primer. You guys know more about this than I do, so I'll just flick through it briefly. It talks through different aspects. It talks about star dates and how they change in format. Could be interesting. Yeah, we are always struggling to find out what star date we are currently playing at when we play it. It's like, oh, what's the star date right now? Nobody can remember. Coffee, sorry, necessary. Then we've got notable civilizations, which gives you a little overview of the different quadrants. So Ferengi, Breen, Sankethi, Cardassian, Tolian, Talarian, and so on. The Gorn hegemony. The Klingons, the Romulans, yeah, the usual ones. But we've also got the Idrin end of the Bajoran wormhole. Whatever is going up over there, I guess that's the, what do you call it, Dominion. So, short introductions. Of course, you have all the source books, which are still working with this edition. The lore hasn't changed, so that still works. All the different quadrant source books will be working. And yeah, I can just zoom through this bit. The interesting bit for me is actually how the rules have changed. This all looks presented quite nicely. I think it's easier to navigate than the original 2017 version, just from the way that box outs work, and the LCAS stuff is gone. You know, the heavy use of the LCAS elements, that seems to be gone. This is much lighter in layout, much easier on the eye. So, Starfleet. Mission types. Let's have a quick look at mission types. So, what sort of thing can you be asked or tasked to do? Science and exploration. They, I think, make some really, really good adventures. We had some good fun with that, actually. Really felt like Star Trek when we were doing some of those. You could do stellar phenomenon survey. Yeah, very exciting. But something always happens in those. Yeah, people always get trapped, or there's something else, or there's an overload, or technical malfunctions, or whatever. Diplomatic, yeah, we tried that in one of the adventures we ran. Troy Mevpan, I think, wrote it, called Ends and Means. We played that. It wasn't the sweet spot for me. Yeah, so we were trying to do negotiations. We were trying to find out who done it and so on. I ran it, and it was okay, but it wasn't really the Star Trek sweet spot for me. First Contact could be interesting. Defense and Aid, of course. And then how to run away teams. So some ideas. Final Frontier. This, I think, is new. Time travel. Yeah, the rest, I think, is just represented. Strange New Worlds, etc. So time travel. Temporal Mechanics 101. You find here how to mess it up, wormholes, etc., etc. Temporal fractures. It was quite fun, actually. I was watching most recent Prodigy, and they've got a lot of Wesley Crusher in it. You might like him, you might hate him, don't know, but it was quite entertaining anyway. My daughter came in and said, "Oh, who's this? Why is he so annoying?" So then we've got characters, creation and play. That's all the old stuff. Talents have changed a bit. The talents basically because we have a slightly different approach to character creation. They now have a species talent essentially. But also because we've got the combat dice gone, or challenge dice, they have been rewritten a bit. I think most of them are still present. Some of them probably have been culled because there were so many extra ones coming from the different source books. I haven't checked, but it felt like this is not the set from all the source books. But yeah, I can see things like if you're tough, your maximum stress is increased by 2. That's something, yeah, you may want to do because the stress track is now limited to only physical bit. Can't remember what it's called. Lots of talents, and then we've got some augment and some esoteric ones. Look at that. ESP and empathy. psychokinesis. So, lots of talents. Let's just zoom in on one here. Did the reading. Let's have a look at that one. So, when you attempt a task, you may spend 1 momentum to use signs on the task instead of the department you would normally use. In addition, you count as having an applicable focus for the task, so that means you can get more successes more easily. Each time after the first in a single scene that you use this ability, the momentum cost increases by 1. This is cumulative. So if you keep banging on the same thing, then it's starting to get a bit costly. But we have on our German crew there, we've got a character who would definitely want that one. He constantly sciences everything. So, character development. This has also changed a bit. It's, from what I read, commentary-wise, it's very, very similar now to what the Klingon one was. I felt here on this one that the old milestones didn't really do it for me. We played, I don't know, 10 sessions now or something, and my character hasn't changed one bit. You had a minor milestone somewhere, but the minor milestone just meant you could change a talent. You didn't enhance anything, you didn't get better at anything, you just changed something. But if they are already so competent, then maybe you don't need something new. But, you know, I like new toys. So, milestones are now connected to the values. Yeah, they drive that. And basically, to reach milestones, you have to have a personal log. And that basically tells you how you tested your values, what happened, whether you questioned them, whether you stuck to them. And you gain 1 whenever you make a connection between the current adventure and the one noted in your log. So at least 2 adventures that are connected via a value or similar. That's definitely needed. So at the end of each adventure, create a brief description of the mission and how your main character was involved. Main character because you might be playing a subsidiary or secondary character. Yeah, this doesn't need to be a big write-up, but you should have a few notes. And that essentially becomes your personal log, which drives the value and directives. Yeah? So it sounds like a bit of bookkeeping, but to be honest, I think this makes it much more tangible, if you like, of how to advance. So that means your values will probably feature more in a game now than they ever used to before, because you have that connection to say, if I want to advance, I need to use these values, so let's try them. Use them positively, negatively, or challenge them. Yeah, that's what it's mentioned here. We could have a quick sneak at the sheet, but I'll do that later. Character sheets, this is not changed from the quick start, so we still have attributes, but we now have departments rather than disciplines. So the departments are basically just renamed. We've got focuses, talents, that hasn't changed either. So then it goes back over. That seems a bit out of sequence here. You may do one of the following. Yes, this is what happens when you reach a milestone. If you use one of your value, you may also make an adjustment to your character. So this is basically the small milestone from before. Okay, you can tweak things. Right, got it. On a bigger milestone, you've got the comparison side by side here. Choose a single attribute and increase it by 1. Whereas the smaller the adjustment, it's take one attribute down by 1 and put it back on the other. Here you actually gain something, but you cannot raise it above 11. So this is real advancement now. Same with the departments. Yeah, focus. Yeah, so you can see on the left you've got just changing something. On the right you've got growth. You can also adjust one of the ship's system by milestoning. So that's interesting. But that's adjustments, not enhancements. Mohammed, have you ever played Star Trek Adventures yet? Next things and character arcs. So again, you're telling a story or following an objective over more than one adventure or more than one scenario. So when you make a call back to a previous adventure, you can get an extra benefit, it says here. So it's a string of adventures that riff on the same theme, the same value. At the minimum, it says this will be 3 adventures. An initial one where you use the value, a milestone where you call back to the initial adventure, and then the third one which calls back to the milestone. And if you do that, you have a bit more advancement. Yeah? So, alright. Advancement definitely has changed. I would have to really live it and try it out before I can see how it works. We also have a reputation system. Was there before, but I think, again, it's become a bit more tangible. And then we have what it means. Yeah, if you have a reputation of 3, where you start, so your record is solid. Your influence as a civilian would be unremarkable, but solid. Yeah. And some... Okay. Let's not get too far into the weeds here. You can get awards and reprimands, of course, but then you're home amongst the stars. What does the starship look like? Now, the starship has changed a bit, especially in the use of power, I believe. And again, if you want me to look into any of these in more detail, then do say so. I'll happily use that as a prompt. Dune and Conan. Yes. Conan was fun, but not the best 2D20 implementation, if you ask me. So, that's the ship. Starship creation. Oh, one of the things you notice in this is basically you've got a lot of these flow diagrams. Okay, they're just sequenced, they're not very complicated, but they just help you, because when you navigate the book, either here or in paper, you can look for this and you say, right, this is where I've got everything, and then it's handily referenced. Each step is referenced. So I like that. I think that's a really good idea for the layout and how this actually works. Space frames. This is a little bit your car catalog. Yeah, what's your favorite? I quite like the Sovereign. And then we've got the Klingons, and then we've got some others. When we were playing the other adventure, I had Ferengi basically trying to escape from the planet. And it says that he goes up in the shuttle, and then there's a Decora. I said, okay, yeah, fine. Decora. And we had a Miranda class, I think, in our crew. So on the screen, we had the Miranda class, and then the Decora came next to it. Those huge hovering things. Like, oh, I never appreciated how big they were. But on Foundry, that was pretty cool. Right. So, Starship talents, lots of talents here going on. Yeah, you can see it. I'm going to flick through everything. But I want to get briefly into the technology. Boring. I want to get into the personal conflict. I'm already on page 250. Did I miss it? Operations, basic operations. So that's basically where the core of the rule starts. 250. Quite a long way in, isn't it? So, traits. Yeah, traits were in the game before, but I think they're really trying to drive home what they were intending to do with it. In Dreams and Machines, this is very similar to truths. Basically, traits can influence. It can make things more difficult or impossible even, and these days it can have a layered. So essentially, if you have a trait that gets in the way of it, you have to work at you can work at reducing the trait to make the task more easy. Yeah, more difficult or more easy. So that's a bit different. We have this thick smoke and this jamming example here on page 253. Which I talked about when we looked at the quick start, so I don't really want to do that again. Not at this stage anyway. And we've got the difficulties as before. What has changed a little bit is how extra dice work. Or if you buy one with determination, for example. That's fresh, that's new. So we have still got down here the spends, great opportunity. You can buy extra die. The same cost as before, but determination used to give you an extra die, which was placed on a 1. Now it doesn't. It's just one of the ones that is in your pool is going to be on a 1. Yeah, you don't roll it. So that's a bit different. And assisting. If you have more than one assistant person coming, you actually have to start spending momentum to allow them to help you. That's also different. That's what I remember from reading the quick start in great detail. We've got a handy charts here again. Okay, I don't want to go too much into the detail. I can feel it. We've got Technobabble. We've got this thing basically where on the left this table could be quite good. So you could have decontaminate the modular gravimetric displacement coil. That sounds pretty good. But the medical babble, that is a bit strange or a bit different. Yeah, so it's not as Technobabble you can use for anything. whereas medical bubble is much more specific here. So skeleton transforming into different material. Okay, that's a random issue, I guess, but you couldn't use it in every context. So then we've got advanced operations with the challenges, and challenges essentially are extended tasks without a challenge track. Let's call it that way. So they haven't changed that much. The extended tasks have changed a bit because we don't have the challenge dice anymore. So they have a hit point track like they used to. There's an example up here. They have breakthroughs, but the breakthroughs are at predetermined points here, at half and at 3/4, roughly. And whenever you have success, you basically, the impact of how many of these you can tick off depends on the department you were using. If there's a resistance, it still reduces it. So if I have a department of, I don't know, engineering I'm using for this, technology, whatever they're called, and I've got a rating of 4 in it, then I could tick 4 boxes, but if there's a resistance of 2 on it, then I could only tick 2. So the dynamic is a bit different. So if you wanted to play one of the older scenarios, you may just want to check the length of the track, I guess, but it should be pretty much compatible, I reckon. There's some nice examples here, something I missed beforehand. This is much better, I think. This talking about timing and how to use timing and how to spend momentum to make things faster, etc. That's the explanation about it is definitely better. The conflicts, I like that they start with social conflict, and they basically have the social tools, as they call them. So they've got some moves you can use. So deception you can use evidence to make it easier, intimidation, negotiation. So you have a tool kit. And I think that you can actually create some nice social challenges from this, different approaches. The battle, or the fighting, again, if you want to know a bit more about how it's changed, as far as I know, look at the quick start video that I did. Movement has changed a bit, so you've got momentum cost to move across more difficult terrain. I'm not a fan of that, still not, after having reread it. Cover makes ranged combat opposed tasks. I think that hasn't changed. Yeah, that's the same. So cover allows you to turn an enemy ranged attack into an opposed task, giving you better chance of resisting them and counter-attacking, so that has changed. Yeah, so that's definitely different how it works. And then this whole thing about stress. Your stress basically is now your hit point task like beforehand, but the thing with injuries has gone away. So yeah, again, if you want more detail on that, let me know and I'll make a video specifically on that. Momentum spends, again, they're very, very similar from what I've seen before. We've got extra major action, for example. The names have changed, and I think they are much more directly understandable. So extra minor action rather than calling or extra major action rather than calling it second wind or something like that. So the names are a bit clearer, I think. And then we've got the same for Starship Conflict. And the roles, different roles here on different places. Now, this is something I haven't read yet, but I know that the intention was that they would give everybody around the bridge something else to do or something more specific to do. And they also changed the energy management. So the sort of generating power and assigning power to different things has changed. And so have the breaches and the damage on starships. But yeah, okay. And then we've got the managing the rules, narrative flow chart, act or react, how to use tasks, how to use challenges, how to use traits is in here, values and directive, very short, but I think this is something I have read, and I thought this was actually a good explanation of how to use traits, which was really missing from the first one. How to deal with people who are dithering. Never happens, right? But they discuss and never come to the conclusion. We'll see how that works. And then we've got, the extended tasks again and extended consequences. I think this is new. I certainly haven't used this before. But essentially, it's a second track that's running, but it's not running to a good resolution, it's running to bad. So it's a bit like a clock maybe, or progress clock, or threat clock. Quite like that. Right, and then we've got the Gorgon's Gaze. I'm not going to read it through, but it's 336 to 346, so it's about 10 pages. It's not huge. We've got a little bit of non-player characters. I don't remember seeing this before. Might have been there. How to create notable NPCs, minor NPCs, I guess. And then we've got some character plots here, so you can basically say, okay, this is a standard character. That goes into Jem'Hadar, warrior, Ferengi salesman, whatever it might be, but also into starships. The stat blocks right at the end, easy to find, and some selected creatures. Just to give you some ideas. The neuroparasite, oh dear, we had to deal with that. Yeah, 2D20 games can be a bit challenging to DM, especially, although I've got all the books here, I was really put off by Dune so far. But Star Trek I was able to do. Yeah, got a couple of players there who know what they're doing as well, and actually it was fine. It was really good fun. And I'm gonna, we sort of have a good table there, but where we have got more than one person who can GM, so we started rotating the GMing for different missions, and that actually works nicely as well. I just have to send my first officer on vacation whenever that happens. Or actually leave him on the bridge so the captain can go down, but he doesn't want to. Different story for another time. Yeah, and then we've got the character sheets, much more straightforward, much easier to print at home. We have on the left the ship sheet, and on the right we've got the personal log, which basically is your values or directive used, so that you can keep track for the advancement. And then the index looks pretty comprehensive, and I think it is linked. Is it linked? Yeah. So the page numbers are linked from the index. You can go straight there. And then we've got something really useful for me, which is the Prime Universe timeline, how it all hangs together, different films, different series, and so on. And then at the bottom, we've got the Terran Universe timeline, and how it all hangs together there. So this is for somebody like me who's not intimately familiar with all the different timelines. This is really useful for me to just say, all right, so if we are playing the 2380s, we are roughly after Nemesis and before Prodigy, and around the time of Lower Decks. So it's a hefty book, yes. So 384 pages. Obviously over. Yeah, but also a hefty book. And 362. So this is slightly heftier. And this still smells new. The original was quite hefty, and Conan was quite hefty, which is also up there somewhere. But this is slightly heftier. There you go. It looks like a nice, refreshed take on the system, as far as I can tell. I think we could actually relatively easily take any running campaign or old material and convert it, and I think it would play more easily, and I think you could probably run it more easily. So maybe when I run the next set of game, next adventure, mission, whatever you want to call it, with my German group, I might see whether we actually introduce some of this rule set and see how it compares. That would be an interesting experiment. So, coming to the end, I've been going for half an hour. If you want to know more about aspects of this, or I got something entirely wrong, and you say, no, you got that wrong, Frank, then please leave me a comment. Leave me a like as well, and if you want to see this at some point played in German, as I said, we are running it on Friday. Not quite sure what the mission is going to be yet. It's a new one. And you never know. I might run the quick start or the introductory adventure in here in English at some point, but I've got a long list of things I want to run. One of them is Dreams and Machines. So, as mentioned before. For now, however, what are we going to play tonight? We're going to play some Dragonbane. And tomorrow I'm going to play some The Between. And on Friday a Star Trek. None of that is actually live on my channel. And let me look at my diary. Just in case you're interested for next week. So, next week I'm away on holiday, so there's not going to be anything on stream. Until Sunday the 4th, when it's back to Forbidden Lands in German. And then we're going to be back to Icewind Dale in that week after my holiday. Right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for keeping me company, Mohammed. And I'll be seeing you later. All right? Bye for now.